Episode 110, Coffee with John and Steve Moran.
Today is gonna be a little something more. I've got a plan in mind, a special thing in store. The light bulb inside my head says, get out and play, 'cause you never feel this way. It's my lucky day.
Well, welcome friends to Coffee with John. This is a podcast for professional caregivers, social workers, academic researchers, technology innovators, and family caregivers. If you are serving in the healthcare industry, especially with the aging community, we want you to join the conversation. You know, the thing that gets most businesses, including senior care living providers, into trouble more than anything else is assuming the way things worked before will continue to work. Well, how do great senior living providers become even better? Do they need access to more and new information, or do they need an environment where they can look at existing conditions in a different ways? Well, where can senior living providers and vendors that serve them go to ask the hard questions and tackle difficult issues? Well, that's what we're going to talk about and discuss in today's episode. But first, a good word for caregivers.
God loves caregivers. Did you know that? Remember, He's one too. Say it's good to share some good news with you, particularly if you're feeling a little bit blah. And that can happen when you've expended your energies and you've gone beyond and you've given and then you had to give some more and you weren't quite ready for that and you're just into the blahs. Well, let me tell you something. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Well, they will mount up with wings as eagles. They will run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Maybe you feel weary and faint, and the blahs have taken over. What do? Wait on the Lord. What does that mean, wait? Well, I think for one thing, it means linger in His presence. Stay in His presence for a while. I know we live and move and have our being in Him, but I mean consciously place yourself in the presence of God so that He can help you. Then you can have other things happening for you that will be such a blessing in your life when you get rid of the blahs and you enjoy the presence of the Lord. It'll mean a lot to you. I encourage you to do it today. Right now is a good time. God cares for caregivers. Remember, He's one too.
Well, welcome back. Steve Moran is a nationally known and sometimes controversial writer and speaker in the senior living industry. He publishes the online senior living website Senior Housing Forum, where the core value is to publish articles, videos, and podcasts that help senior living providers do a better job serving residents, team members, and the local marketplace community. He has developed and operated large and small senior living communities and has worked with senior living communities to create better, more productive cultures. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, John. I'm excited to be chatting with you today.
Well, we're excited to have you here. So first question, let's start with how and why. How did you get into this industry, and why did you get out and back in again?
Sure. Well, I could probably take up the whole podcast just answering that question, so I'll give you a very abbreviated version of it. I graduated from college and was really intrigued by the real estate industry, got a real estate license, went to work, started selling real estate. And honestly, I had an amazing first year. I made a ton of money. I was so excited. And then we had the very first, before probably you were born, oil crisis, economic crisis, and mortgage rates went to 18% and nobody bought anything.
Yeah.
And so I was desperate, and I ran across somebody who had bought a little 15-bed board and care in Northern California, and they were making money on it. And at first I couldn't believe it, and I looked at the numbers, and so I thought, well, I can do that too. And so I bought some buildings and built some buildings, but I was too young, not smart enough, undercapitalized, mostly wasn't smart enough. And my whole little empire came crashing down around my head. It was a horrible, horrible experience. Did some work for some other people in the arena. And then I got the opportunity to go get rich in Silicon Valley.
Oh, great.
That, right?
Right.
So I was my goal was at like 41, 42, I was going to become a millionaire with stock options, and then I could just retire and travel the world. Well, again, my timing wasn't so good. So I got there just a little before the big crash. Always made an okay living there. Didn't like it very much, though. And I, about 4 or 5 years ago, actually, I guess it's more than that, about 7.5, 8 years ago, we decided to make kind of a shift in our life. And I wanted to actually go out and come back into the senior living industry because it was where really my passion was. And so I went looking for a job. And as I was going through this process, I crossed paths with a guy who I was friendly with in the technology space, who'd started a blog in the technology world. Did a little bit of work for him, and as I was making this transition, I thought, I can write. I wonder if I can start a blog in the senior living space. So I went to work for a company called Vigil Health Solutions that sells help I can't get up systems for senior living communities. And the same week I went to work for them, I wrote my first blog, and I was back in the industry.
Wow. And was that blog, is that what became Senior Housing Forum?
Yep, it was actually always Senior Housing Forum. It looked a lot different back then. It was I went out and bought a $5 a month hosting plan and taught myself a little bit of WordPress and put the most basic theme in that I could use and I could manage. And I think the first article I ever wrote, I was just doing one a week. And the first article I ever wrote had about 30, 40 people who read it. And that was mostly friends and family. But I guess it kept inviting people to read it, and it grew and grew and grew. And after actually about 24 months, I realized that I was working for Vigil. They allowed me to grow this thing, and it did help in my business development with them. And the blog had also all of a sudden become sort of this full-time job on its own, was making a good living for me, and I just couldn't do both things. And so I quit with Vigil. They're still a great sponsor for us. We have a very, very friendly relationship. And this has been my full-time gig for, I guess, 4.5, 5 years now.
So who is your target audience? When you're writing Senior Housing Forum and for this podcast, who would be the perfect person that we want to chat with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the target has always been the C-suite down to about the executive director, marketing level person. And the idea behind it is that we want to publish content that's going to help providers do a better job. And do a better job can mean lots of things. It might mean doing sales and marketing better. It might mean providing a better life enrichment program. It might mean treating team members better because that turns into better care. It might mean doing a better job in thinking about how you do your capital and your financing. And so it means actually lots of things. And we kind of touch on all those arenas, and we touch on stuff that's hard sometimes.
One of the things that as I was looking at your website that really distinguishes you guys is the fact that you're, not only do you sort of challenge kind of traditional thinking and the status quo, but you're very open to learning. I don't know if that comes from your technology background of, always trying, but what is it that you're, by having that philosophy, what is it that you're trying to establish? How do you want to be different in the, in the industry?
So I think the biggest thing that makes us different. So fundamentally, and I've already talked about this, is we're primarily editorial. So we're not really a news site at all. Maybe once a year, somebody will say, hey, I've got this really cool news story. I'm going to give it to you first. And that's always fun to do, but that's not really where we're focused. Our goal really is to say, this is a great industry, but how do we make it better? And so I used to worry that it was a little bit arrogant, honestly, because my goal has always been to say, I actually see what we do. I see me as a blogger, as a writer, as a publisher, as being a part of the industry. So when the industry is successful, that's my success. If the industry has a failure, that's my failure. And so I think that what it would be fair to say about most of the other media outlets, and this is not negative, it's just different, is that mostly they're news organizations. And so they're saying these are the things that are going on, these are the trends we're seeing, and I'd rather say, okay, we know these trends, but what does it mean and how can we shake things up?
Yeah. So looking at over kind of the last year, 2018, we're coming up on the close of 2018. What are some of those things that you saw in 2018 that you thought were really, worth having a conversation about?
Great question. I think that one of the things that we're seeing that's really important is that we have a lot of senior living organizations that are struggling economically. And they're not struggling so much because the buildings or the operations are inherently bad. But what happened was there was so much free and easy money, particularly from the real estate investment trust, that they just don't, they sold away so much of the value that there's not a lot of margin for much downturn. And so we've had this big growth in inventory that has made occupancy either stall out or actually drop a little bit. And yet they've got these capital contracts with these REITs, which are really leases that actually require them to pay more money. And so it's just left a lot of money, or not really having enough money in there. So people are really struggling. We've seen some big restructuring there. Also, there's a lot of talk right now about the human capital problem. And for sure, that's an issue. Although I would say that the biggest problem we actually have is much more retention rather than is recruitment. We actually are recruiting a lot of people, but we're just not doing a great job of holding on to the people that we hire and making them feel like senior living is the number one place to go to work. So that's a big challenge.
That's kind of an area of passion. I've got a background in the recruiting industry. What are you seeing that's working well to solve that problem in retention?
So I think that there's some people who are really doing some great job. And this is a tough problem for me because I think that the key to good retention is treating people like you like them and like you value them. And there are a lot of people who are doing programs and they have initiatives and, there's a place for all of that. But I think mostly what I see is that the places where they're really successful is they're just spending time, leaders are spending time talking to and getting to know the people who are working for them. They know about their kids and their families and their struggles and their ambitions and their dreams. There are a couple of companies that are working on some really, really cool initiatives where they are bringing together both residents and longer-term team members to create committees that actually work on holding on to new employees. There's a community in Southern California called Roundtree Garden, and they actually hired a millennial to do their hiring. Mm-hmm. And he is so passionate about the industry. And one of the things he does with new hires is he looks at them and he does actually, he says, I expect you to really care for this person like it's my grandmother. You're going to do that, right? And then he looks at him and he says, this isn't always an easy job, and sometimes things don't go right. So I want to have you make me a promise that if you get discouraged and you think about quitting, before you quit, you'll come and talk to me about it. And then you can quit if you still want to, but you got to come and talk to me. And it's had a really profound impact, and people who are struggling come and talk to him, and he can help them make it better. And so it's been really good, interesting stuff.
It's funny how just kind of having that human touch, just treating people like human beings where they're respected and you are, what they want. And, I don't know that anyone stays in a job for 20, 30 years anymore. Those days are long over. So that's a false expectation in the first place. But while you're here, giving your best, being valued, and having everyone know when it's time to move on and to transition to something else. Something that I've seen a lot in the news, and I think it's happening a lot in Europe, is these sort of communities that are being built out where they're intentionally multi-generational communities. I think there's some stuff in Netherlands. I also think in Japan as well, they have some communities. Have you seen any of those types of experiments come over here to the States? And have you seen sort of intentional multi-generational communities being built out?
I wish I could tell you that there were some great multi-generational places out there. There's certainly some discussion about it. You do see some senior living buildings that are built either on the campuses of universities or adjacent to universities. So there's some back and forth with university students, and they're typically occupied by people who are alumni of those universities. We also are seeing some communities where they're doing things like preschool or daycare as a part of the community, so the residents can have some interaction with little kids. But I sort of have this big dream idea of I don't know whether this would work or not, right? But I'm very intrigued by the small house movement. Although I've got so much junk in my house, it would take me about 10 of them to fit in.
Yeah. I would need like 10 small houses to make it work.
Yeah. But imagine for a minute you built this kind of a village with a bunch of small houses that were really close together, but had all this common yard space and maybe a common kitchen or common meeting room. And you'd have a mix of young families and older seniors, and in some cases, the young families would be able to provide the caregiving and get paid for that, which would make the cost of living lower for them, and it would make the cost of living potentially lower for the residents, and they'd still have their own homes, and they'd interact and really do life together. Yeah. And I haven't seen anybody really do that, but it's an idea that really intrigues me. So
let's use that to kind of transition to the question that I love to ask, which is what keeps you up at night? And you can answer that either, hey, this is what scares me and I'm worried about it, or you can answer it, man, this is what I see down the road and I can't sleep because I'm so excited. So what keeps you up at night?
Well, so there's so many ways I could answer that question. I guess the biggest thing that keeps me up at night on sort of a negative side of things is that we are not willing to condemn publicly and shame bad operators. By coincidence, I'm actually publishing tonight, which will be later in terms of when this goes out, but I'm actually publishing what I can only call a rant about how the Carlisle Group bought HCR Manor Care and they ended up in bankruptcy. And a week or so ago, there was a sort of an expose story in the Washington Post about it. And I felt like I needed to weigh in because the industry has been more or less silent about it. And one of the comment in there that really drove me crazy was the Carlisle Group, in talking about the bankruptcy that took place. They said, well, nobody lost any money in it. And yeah, see, that's my reaction.
For those of you that are listening to this podcast, I just gave this really weird look. And so that's the reaction, was this funny look on our face going, A, how does that happen? B, so...
Yeah, I mean, the problem is how many families were neglected? How many residents ended up in the hospital or had poor quality of life? I will tell you, and I've written about it before, but until this article, I hadn't publicly talked about it. But my mom had a stroke. I needed to put her in long-term care. We thought skilled nursing would be great to get some rehab. And I toured 4 or 5 buildings, found a manor care building. And in the day, it seemed really, really nice. And they were really oriented towards therapy, and it was going to be this cool thing. And so we made arrangements. I signed all the paperwork. The ambulance didn't get her to the nursing home until 7:30 in the evening. And within 10 minutes, I knew I'd made a horrible mistake because nobody cared that she was there. And after 5 days, we took her out. The day we took her out, she had clothing that was covered with feces. And it wasn't the caregivers. The caregivers were trying so hard. They just didn't have enough help. Yeah. And we, as an industry, ought to be condemning that and be ashamed of that and saying that's not us and that's not good enough.
Yeah. So on the positive side, what are you excited about?
Yeah. So my positive side is overall, particularly on the senior living, assisted living side, we do an amazing job of caring for seniors. And we have great opportunities. We're changing the world. There's great opportunity in the low middle income marketplace that I'm really excited about. We're actually getting ready to do a summit, a one-day summit on that in the spring of next year. And I do think that we're seeing people begin to get more creative about ways to do things like intergenerational, and so I think that there are a lot of people who are saying what we have today is great. It's maybe even good enough for what it is, but we need more options. We need to be more creative, and there are a lot of really smart people who are thinking about that stuff. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great time. And this is the thing that I'm learning is, we all get older and we're going to be dealing with this one way or another. So, Steve, I'm so glad that you are out there in the industry and you're helping us to kind of stay, where we're supposed to be. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a labor of love. It's the best job I've ever had.
Awesome. Well, if you want to learn more about Steve and the work that he is doing at Senior Housing Forum, you can visit his website, seniorhousingforum.net, or visit the show notes for this episode at coffeewithjohn.com/110. If you found this episode valuable, please do us a favor and subscribe to Coffee with John in iTunes and leave an honest rating. If you'd like to listen to previous episodes, visit us at coffeewithjohn.com. That's coffeewithjohn.com. Well, I'm already lining up interviews for Season 2 and would welcome your suggestions, comments, and ideas for upcoming episodes. So just connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter. All of the links are at coffeewithjohn.com.
It's my lucky day.